Well, with the pressing business of the U.S. presidency before him, Donald Trump can't seem to move beyond the past. Sources say Mr. Trump told congressional leaders Monday, if not for 3 to 5 million illegal ballots, he would have won the popular vote. We should point out there is no evidence to support this claim he keeps bringing up.
Mr. Trump also welcomed union and business leaders to the White House, and he kept his word on a key campaign promise, pulling the U.S. out of the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership.
We just officially terminated TPP. And just signed a document, very powerful document. And we're going to have trade, but we're going to have one-on-one. And if somebody misbehaves, we're going to send them a letter of termination, 30 days, and they'll either straighten it out or we're gone.
Well, joining us now, Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican consultant John Thomas.
Also with us, CNN Money Asia Pacific editor Andrew Stevens in Hong Kong and CNN correspondent David McKenzie standing by in Beijing.
Andrew, first to you. President Trump following through on one of his key campaign promises of withdrawing the U.S. from the TPP. He stressed on Monday the U.S. would sign trade deals only with individual allies. So let me ask you this. What are expectations for the U.S. renegotiating bilateral trade deals with the 11 other countries that make up the TPP?
Well, Donald Trump made it pretty clear there, didn't he, that he's going to do one-on-one, and if people don't comply within 30 days, if they breach the rules of that one-on-one, they're going to be out of there. So he's making it very clear that this is going to be the way forward for him in the wake of the TPP, which was, of course, a 12-member multi-country partnership. The interesting thing here is when he talks about a one-on-one deal, what does he actually mean, Aisha? Because if you look at what he's been saying, he's talking about putting America first, buying American goods first. So what he's saying is basically, it sounds like we will negotiate on very much our terms. Now, there used to be a term called mercantilism, which was really a zero-sum game. We win, you lose. That sort of seems to be what Donald Trump's hinting at. Interestingly also that the Japanese Prime Minister came out after Mr. Trump made that statement saying that they think the way forward on trade deals is to use the architecture, if you like, of the TPP. And Shinzo Abe is talking about making sure there's proper protection for labour, for environmental standards, for intellectual property, etc., etc. Whether Donald Trump picks that up, we don't know at the moment. But what he's signalled, it is going to be a whole new ball game now for US and the globe and trade.
Okay, now to David McKenzie standing by in Beijing. So, David, it seems that the door is now wide open for China to move ahead with its own trade deals and essentially cash in on this decision by the US president.
Well, that's right. The big economy on the block, of course, is China. It was not included in those 12 nations that Andrew describes. And China now will be seen to taking advantage, most likely, of the U.S. pulling back from its economic commitments in the region. But this is not just about trade. It's also about politics. And certainly some of the allies of the U.S., including Japan, in the region, will be thinking potentially that they've been let down by the U.S., who made a big push to get this TPP partnership in the region to try and counteract China's influence in the Asia-Pacific. Now they might try to cobble together TPP without the U.S., but it certainly won't be as strong of an option, and it certainly is an opening door for China. John?
Okay.
Yeah, David and Andrew, stand by for us. Let's bring it back to the studio here. And guys, let me put this to you. I mean, the TPP was effectively dead. It hadn't been ratified by Congress anyway. So why make this such a big deal in your first full day of office? I mean, what's the message here? What's really going on? Is it more about optics than anything else?
It's 100% about optics. I mean, this is a big reason Donald Trump got through a primary. He was running on a populist agenda to repeal TPP. I mean, it was interesting today. This was a moment when Bernie Sanders congratulated Donald Trump. It's about what Donald Trump said in his inauguration speech about putting Americans first, killing bad trade deals, killing things that hurt American workers. And this is for Donald Trump, it's on message, and it's better talking about this than crowd size.
There's been a lot of surreal things happen over the last couple of days. Bernie Sanders praising Donald Trump was the least of them. What I don't understand, though, I get, you know, ripping up the TPP, it was a campaign promise, but why withdraw from the TPP and hand this huge win to China? This is for Dave. While at the same time, he says he's going to renegotiate NAFTA, the trade deal between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. I mean, surely, you know, if you're going to renegotiate NAFTA, you recognize the benefits of free trade.
Potentially, yeah. Look, I think this was one of the things that Donald Trump said he was going to do on his first day in office when he had that speech at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. He said, look, I'm going to rip apart the TPP. It's a widely recognized bipartisan issue. Bernie Sanders campaigned on it. Obviously, Donald Trump did. So I think this is one of the few things he said he was going to do on day one that he actually accomplished. But the reality is there's several things that he also said that he was going to do on day one that he hasn't done, right? He said that he was going to put a term limit amendment forward in Congress. He also said that he was going to put a limit on folks who serve in Congress or in the White House that they can't lobby for 5 years. These are things that he hasn't delivered on, and I think it's going to raise real questions about whether or not he's going to follow through on all of his promises.
Here's what's fascinating to me about NAFTA is Trump wrote The Art of the Deal. He claims he's a smart businessman and that America's been cutting bad deals and that everything needs to be renegotiated. So he's talking not about repealing NAFTA, but renegotiating. What does that look like?
Yeah.
I think Americans are going to be watching very closely. Can he strike a better deal?
Yeah, and let me ask you this. I mean, with withdrawing the U.S. from the TPP, you know, there are going to be American workers thinking that things are going to change, right? I mean, what happens when they realize, actually, no, it's not going to change. Those jobs aren't going to come flooding back. I mean, what does America First look like in reality for people looking for jobs?
Well, and at the same time, he's putting in a hiring freeze at the federal level.
Yeah.
There's 2.1 million federal employees. He's not going to allow any new employees to come into the federal system, and that raises real questions about whether or not he's going to really stand up for the little guy, for the average worker.
Well, he is, just not the government worker. He's going to stand up for private sector
So he's going to
workers.
contract out those services, though?
Probably.
Right. Still going to get the job done.
I think the argument he would say is it's boring.
Reagan did exactly the same thing on his first day in office
Right.
back in 1980. So, I mean, it's sort of standard
To
boilerplate
freeze, yeah.
stuff of you know, a Republican
hiring.
president.
Right.
Okay, let's look at the positive from the first, you know, weekday of the Trump presidency. Round of meetings with business leaders, also with union bosses. We also had the meeting with congressional leaders as well. This has basically been seen as a positive because, Dave, one of the big criticisms of President Obama is that he didn't really reach out to many of these groups. You know, he asked many of these CEOs who are in the Oval Office today, how many of you have been in this office before? I think 2 or 3 put up their
3.
hands. So, you know, if this continues, it's a positive, right?
I think generally the fact that he's opening the doors of the White House and trying to at least be inclusive and bring labor folks and business folks into the White House is a good thing that any president should do. The fact that he flat out lied to congressional leaders and basically said, well, there was widespread voter fraud. I would have won the popular vote by 3 to 5 million votes had these votes not been put forward, these fraudulent votes. I think that was something that was widely debunked, and I think it really undermines the president's credibility on the heels of several sort of back-to-back lies that the White House has put forward.
But John, again, bringing that up, the issue of 3 to 5 million illegally cast ballots, it gets back to this issue of his concern about seen as being illegitimate or not having the mandate.
Sure.
I mean, that's what that this is all about, right?
100%. And partially it's an ego thing. He can't ever accept the fact that in some measurement, one that really doesn't matter in our system, but some measurement that he didn't come out on top. He just can't, whether it's ratings or attendance, he just can't stomach it. The other good news we did see today, I think, was out of the press secretary. I think the press conference went by and well, better than it did on Saturday.
first day.
Well, it couldn't have gone a lot any worse, would it, than Saturday? I mean, like, the bar was pretty low.
He could have doubled down, and he didn't really.
Yeah, I mean,
about the news, the
Sure.
briefing on Monday. Look, certainly there was a softer tone. He opened with a joke, which felt really flat, I should say. And while the tone was softer, the substance hadn't changed. He still repeated the fact that the inauguration was the most watched period.
Yeah.
You know, and so he did double down and then told everyone, we're not going to lie to you. I mean, so, you know, yeah, the tone is different, but the substance
I
hasn't
think
changed.
where he softened it was saying, look, we all can initially make mistakes. He goes, what I meant is I made a mistake perhaps on the visual, but in fact, looking at the Nielsen ratings, looking at the online views, I still think this was the most
wasn't that
watched.
ridiculous? I mean, when you heard that, what went through your mind when you started talking about tablets and YouTube and all the rest of it? I mean...
Well, I thought that was the argument, that if they went down that rat hole, that he should have made at the outset rather than definitively saying something that could be fact-checked. It's just the truth. There were more people with Barack Obama than there were Trump. Like, why did they have to go down that rat hole? And I'll tell you why. It's because the boss tells the spokesperson to go out and fight that fight.
Yeah, but here's the challenge. Like, he's lost all credibility. What he should have done today is gone out on the podium and said, folks, American folks, people, I'm sorry. I lied. I apologize. Let's move forward.
I'm moving out. Now I'm back in my boat. My boxes.
I got it wrong. Rather than lying.
Got it wrong.
Look, another alternative fact stated by the president over the weekend was at the CIA headquarters. Mr. Trump said the media created this rift between him and the intelligence community. He was at CIA. He got this huge round of applause when he attacked the media. Listen to this.
As you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth.
Okay, so on Saturday, White House spokesperson Sean Spicer said that there was a raucous standing ovation by the audience that were there, and that they were overwhelmingly enthusiastic about having Donald Trump as their commander-in-chief. But we have this report now from CBS News that the Trump folks actually took about 40 of their own supporters there. They essentially stacked it. They were the ones who were doing all the cheering and all the clapping. Many within the intelligence community, which tried to steer clear of the politics, were very concerned about what the Trump people were doing. So, again, we've got this continued deception about the popularity of the president, and goes to the very core of this administration. Why do they have to continue on with this narrative?
It's pathetic, and I think it really fans the flames of the growing rift between the president and the intelligence committee. I mean, the reality is that it was just a week ago that he compared the intelligence community to Nazi Germany, and the fact that they were having a, quote, witch hunt for him. I mean, this thing really undermines the credibility of the presidency, of the office, and the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump needs the intelligence community to have a good relationship with him, because he needs their intelligence in order to keep us safe.
Let's play some sound from Sean Spicer, the White House press person, as he kind of answered this question about, the administration's intention of deceiving the public about the popularity of the new president.
Stacking the audience.
Stacking the audience, yeah.
The people in the front who were seen on camera, those were CIA employees?
I honestly, I don't have a seating chart. I think we had a very small footprint going over there. I don't know exactly who went over, but I don't know, maybe 10 people at most. Sarah, what's that? 10? We're in the travel going over.
Okay, hands up who believes him.
Yeah, and
again,
he's caught again in something that can be checked, something that's verifiable. Why do it? I'm looking at you.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, they should. If you're going to fudge the truth, do it on things that are more nebulous, that it's your perception versus mine, not things with photographs, not things that can potentially, now media could go back and perhaps get a seating chart, right? Those are things that are a distraction from press conferences like on the TPP, when jobs are saved or created here. Trump understands, and you saw it in his inauguration speech, he wants to be the America First jobs president. That's what he wants to be. And all of these are sideshows. It's this confliction between Trump can't help himself with he understands where he wants to be on message, and he's got to get his act together because it will undermine him. There's a lot more of you guys than him.
And Dave, could we establish the fact here and now that it's not the media which is creating the sideshows? It is coming directly from Donald Trump and those around him.
Right. For example, the Nazi comment about the intelligence committee last week, like the media is just throwing back at Donald Trump the words that he's already spewed out, whether during the transition or as president or as a candidate. The media is objective. Their goal is to identify the truth, ask the tough questions, and get folks to go on the record so that they can convey to the American people or to the world what the facts are.
Thank you. We'll have you back. You're in trouble.
Maybe
not so much.
I didn't expect this warm a welcome, but it's good to be back.
Just do my job.
Great guy.
Thank you.